Hello, my name is Russell Myers, Independent for U.S. President for 2024. I believe I have stated in the past that one of the most challenging policies that I am working on has to do with housing. This is, at least for myself and in the way in which I wish to put forward a housing program. When I try to address housing, I'm trying to address the affordability of housing, the availability of affordable housing, whereas what I do not wish to do is to simply subsidize corporate owners of housing. We keep on hearing that there is a housing crisis in this country, and we need to build more housing. Honestly, I fail to see this. I do not agree with that statement at all. There are millions of vacant residential properties across this country, most of which are rental properties, because who can afford to buy anymore? But obviously, the Biden administration, and by the way, if you look at every proposal that is put forth by any administration, by the Housing and Urban Development Department, anyone, you name it, it doesn't matter how much they label themselves a progressive or whatever. Every time that they put something forward, it subsidizes the corporate owners, the large corporate owners, which brings us to today. So let's go into this. And okay. Yes, the White House opens $45 billion in federal funds to convert offices into homes. Biden administration turns to developers to help ease U.S. housing crisis. So let me go back to something here before I continue with that. One of the reasons I don't believe that there is a housing crisis is that we've never actually stopped building housing. That never stopped. It slowed down, but it didn't stop. Right now, there are lots of people that are walking away from, deals for homes because the interest rate is too high. So their mortgage is going to be astronomical. And banks are just not loaning out money for homes right now because the banks are in crisis. The birth rate has slowed. We have we've deported millions of immigrants, which frees up more housing. Okay. There are more people 18 to 29 that are living at home with their parents today than at any time since the Great Depression in the 1930s. So if they're not renting or buying houses, well, that means that there's more housing that is available. So where's this crisis coming from? Was there some sudden population explosion that I haven't heard anything about? Where's it coming from? Was there some massive devastation that wiped out half of our housing? No. But here we are. So who's going to get helped? Well, simple enough. All right. The White House kicked off a multi-agency push on Friday to help real estate developers convert more office buildings emptied by the pandemic into affordable housing. Now, they say affordable housing, but I want you to note as we go through this that there is no standard in any of these, within these proposals, which make it necessary for the housing provided to be affordable. This initiative aims to harness $35 billion in low-cost loans. As the interest rate goes up, the Biden administration wants to offer real estate developers and investors low interest to no interest loans available through the Transportation Department to fund housing development near transit hubs, folding the initiative into the Biden administration's clean energy push, which also is not any requirement in any of this. All right, it also opens up additional funding sources and tax incentives and offers a new guide to 20 federal programs that developers, not renters, not residents, not homeowners, developers can tap, and that offers technical assistance in what can be tricky and expensive conversions. A third part of the program will see the federal government drop a public list of buildings it owns that could be made available for sale to help bolster development. In other words, these are public buildings that you and I have paid for that are going to be handed over for pennies on the dollar or for free to real estate developers. Why is this happening? Because commercial real estate is in absolute crisis. It is collapsing. All right, these downtowns and central business districts that we are talking about today often already designed and oriented around public transit. That was poorly worded. I didn't write it. All right, Transportation Secretary Steve Buttigieg said in a press briefing, our intention is to make the most of this opportunity to add more housing near transit in ways that only reduce the cost, not only reduce the cost of housing, how does it do that? But often reduce the cost of transportation. No, what they're doing is subsidizing turning office buildings into high-end rental properties or, expensive condos. Will you or I be able to afford to rent or buy any of these apartments or whatever? No, we won't. Chances are we won't. National office vacancies have neared 25% versus 8% in Europe. All right, so, vacancy rates in some cities for office vacancies in some cities are even higher, setting fresh records as property values plunge and more owners default on their mortgage loans. The only thing that is missing today is a lack of financing. So, borrowing costs have shot up since the Federal Reserve began raising rates last year to fight inflation, resulting in a credit crunch that's squeezing building owners who have debt coming due. Companies also remain unsure about how much space they really need and what they're willing to pay for it. So that's what it is. They are bailing out the investors, the property owners that are going to default on their bad loans. And the banks that handed out those risky loans. This is what's happening, and you're paying for it. Do we get more affordable housing out of it? Explain to me how this does that. It doesn't. Period. There are a few things to understand here. In 2008, they called it the housing crisis, when in fact it was a real estate crisis and the financial industries. Oh, the banks that handed out risky loans. And the developers were freaking failing on those loans, in addition to the risky mortgages that never should have been approved. But, well, here we are again. So it is the investors, the real estate developers, et cetera, et cetera. These are the ones that got bailed out in 2009, and you're bailing them out again. We've come full circle. The very last bill, a lot of people don't know about this, the very last bill that Barack Obama signed when he was leaving office was a bill to bail out equity investors. In other words, investors, large companies like BlackRock. And on his first day in office, the very first thing that Trump did, one of the few things that he did that I actually supported, was to veto that bill. Think about that. A real estate developer signed, he vetoed a bill to bail out developers. So, yeah, that was one thing that he did that I actually agreed with. But that was the Obama-Biden administration that pushed that bill through, and now here's Biden bailing out the equity investors at your expense again. Now, I have a lot of ideas myself for, actually creating affordable housing in this country. Some might be controversial. Well, take a look through my policies. A few of my policies are pretty controversial, but they're realistic, and they help real people like you. And instead of corporate owners that are failing, we're not going to bail them out again. And this is not the only bailout that is headed toward Wall Street. You are going to bail them out again. It's already started. Do you approve of this? Do you agree with this? Try and find anybody that is any other candidate that's even talking about this. You're not going to find them because it's not there. I'm the only one that's going to be talking about it. Oh, yeah, they'll talk about affordable housing, but what ideas do they have to deal with it? I'm not talking about building massive public housing projects. That's not one of my proposals. But I need to consult with some people on it. But the one thing I'm not going to do is bail out corporations at your expense so that you will be stuck renting for the rest of your life and paying ever more and more rent. You're taking these buildings that are centrally located. Have you ever looked at how much it costs to rent an apartment downtown? Well, this is just going to increase the cost of that. They're going to build elite housing and you're going to pay for it, and you won't be able to live there. You will not be able to afford to live there. Share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand my campaign. We need to talk about these things in real terms. We need to be aware of what is happening. All right, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day.